we have with us today Sergeant Frank Jang, who is currently with the Media Relations and Strategic Communications for the Integrated Homicide Investigation Team, often referred to as IHIT. Prior to his media relations role, Frank was a homicide investigator and supervisor for IHIT from 2012 to 2017. Before IHIT, he was a drug enforcement officer with the federal RCMP. So thank you very much, Frank, for taking the time to sit down and talk with us here at the BC Victims of Homicide today. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure, Jessica. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Today, what we're going to do is we'd like to know about the media and its role in a homicide investigation, what happens when families are approached, and just as the media relations officer, telling us how we can best utilize the media for the benefit of families or friends, and why it is that they're so involved.
I think the media is so crucial to any police investigation, but when it comes to homicides, it is so important. And I'm not just saying that just because I work in the role of media relations, but oftentimes the community has the answer. The answer is out there, whether it's video surveillance or a dash cam video or a witness who saw something that's critical to the investigation. Oftentimes they don't know what they have. They don't know the knowledge, how important it is that they have until they see it in the media. And also with the advent of social media now, where really, everybody's, a journalist really, and they can post information for the world to see. I mean, there is so much information out there. It is so important that we, especially IHIT, that we work with the media, that we have a very good relationship with the media. And I'm happy to say that I think we do have a very good relationship with them. But the media component to the investigation, we can't overlook that. It's so important.
Yeah, that's a really good point you make about how the community may have the answer. So that's really interesting to hear. Let's go back a bit and explain IHIT and how it is involved with homicides in BC, and you as the frontman as the media. So explain a little bit about IHIT.
Yeah. So IHIT is the largest homicide unit in Canada. We've got about 110 employees, 80 of whom are sworn police officers. There are investigators. 30 are civilian staff, administrative staff, analysts. They do everything from really planning the itinerary for investigators who need to fly off and conduct investigations, in some other part of Canada or around the world, all the way to, civilian members who do transcription, transcribing the hundreds of pages of statements that we take from witnesses. So everybody here has an important role to play. We're made up of RCMP officers and police officers from 4 municipal detachments, which are West Vancouver, Port Moody, New Westminster, and Abbotsford. We average probably about anywhere between, I would say, about 35, 40 to 50, 55 homicides a year. And of course, we take each and every one of those cases very seriously.
That's great. And you, as the media representative, we often see you on the television or Twitter. So explain to us your role there. What's happening when you are interfacing with the media there?
Yeah. And I apologize. I say this so often is that I unfortunately have bad news, it seems. I really wish I had some good news, but there are times when often we announce charge, and I suppose that is very good news. My role simply is to support the investigators, support the investigative teams through the media, through our communications media strategy. So my purpose really is to amplify our message and our message is simply, look, somebody died, somebody's life was taken in our community. We need your help. We need everybody, especially those who lived in that area, who was walking their dog in that area, who was driving through that area where that shooting occurred or where that person was killed, to stop where you are, listen to us, listen to the details of the investigation, And if you're in a position to help, please do help us. It's really that simple. And there are times where even not at the onset of the investigation, that's usually where a lot of times people, I guess, see me, is when the investigation begins at the beginning. But there's a lot of times during the investigation where we have a piece of information that we believe that would be beneficial to share that with the public, with the community. Whether, for example, it could be video surveillance footage or something that we learned from a witness. And we want to put it out there, and in the hopes that there are going to be people with information phoning back.
Mhm.
And a lot of families have participated in this, but we also do what we call appeal media events, where we invite family members, and I completely understand this isn't for all families. A lot of families aren't at that stage yet, but for some families, they do um, uh, come up on stage with me and address the media. We take time and we prepare that statement, and certainly I sit down and I help them with that. And the purpose of that is to, first of all, to share with the community who our loved one is, who our victim of homicide was, and not to simply say this person was a victim of homicide, just a statistic, just a number. No, this person was in fact a human being whose life was taken. This person was our son, was our daughter, was our brother. So that is certainly one of my honors, one of the privileges that I have in working with the families on those particular events. But really, we do all this because we are mindful of one goal, and that is to solve that case, plain and simple.
Right. And I know that you had mentioned that you've got a unique relationship with the families and that you will do events not only at the time of the loss, but at the anniversary or birthday of the victim to raise awareness in case it hasn't been
Yeah,
solved yet.
yeah. So I'll say this, and I think everybody who will agree with me, but nobody ever forgets about a murder, Jessica. You know that, I know that. A lot of people, I think, realize that. Whether it's the police that investigates the homicide, whether it's the perpetrator, the people who are complicit in the actual act of committing a homicide, none of those people will ever forget their role in that heinous act. And the families, you certainly are never going to forget.
Right. Of course.
And so, and everyone that's touched by homicide, has a part to play in a homicide, does not forget about what happened. And so even, there are cases where it does take months, it spills into years.
Mhm.
And it seems as though, when is this case ever going to get solved? When will I, as a family member, have those answers that I've been seeking all these years, right?
Right.
And we work towards that. And sometimes it's frustrating. It's not the family. Trust me, it's also us, the police. It's frustrating when we realize we're so close on these things. And it's just, we need somebody to corroborate that piece of evidence, those pieces of evidence that we have. But 3 years, 4 years, 5 years later, or on an anniversary or a birthday, we'll choose to go in front of the media and do our media appeal event. And
Mhm.
that's because we know that nobody ever forgets. People with that information, if they were involved in the murder, they know, right? It's oftentimes I'll give you an example. At the end of an investigation, we'll interview oftentimes a suspect, or even the people that had, I would say, peripheral roles, not the actual person that perhaps pulled the trigger or stabbed the knife, but people who may have assisted and abetted in the homicide. Those people, they never forget, because we sit down with them, we ask them, please tell us what they know, what you know. It's done, it's over with. The people who are involved are being charged. What is your say in this? What was your part in this? And they will recall every detail of their involvement, what the weather was like, what they were thinking, what they were feeling, they recall everything because it's one of the homicide is one of those things. And I mean, I think we all understand it's unnatural. It's something when you see it, when you witness it, you'll never forget it. Right. And that's why we don't care if it's 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years. We're never going to stop investigating and we're never going to stop appealing. And for those who say, 5, 6 years later, why do you keep coming, before the media and asking about the same case, appealing, like, haven't you had enough? And I said, well, no, we'll be here next month. We'll be here next year on the same anniversary and we'll make the same appeal because those who were involved, they're out there and they haven't forgotten. And it's about, the right time, getting the right evidence, making the right approach. But one thing is, we always say is don't ever lose hope. Don't ever lose hope in, we've just seen this just at the end of the last year in 2020, we had a charge approval on a case from 2008 here in Surrey.
Wow.
People thought, one of the reactions was, who? We don't remember that case. It was 12 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we haven't forgotten. The families haven't forgotten. And now that, we believe at least the person who, we believe did it will have his day in court, right?
Right. Right.
But yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that. About the media, how about with the media and families? And when the media approaches a family, tell us about that and some of your best practices and advice that you have for them and why the media can play a pro role for them and maybe some cons as well.
Yeah. And certainly the media can help. I know we all have our opinions on the media, some good, some not so good. And I understand for a lot of families, especially in the beginning, right? When, I haven't lost a family member to homicide. So I try to relate with families of homicide victims as much as I can, but really I haven't been in those shoes. So I can only imagine how painful it is.
Yeah.
But really I don't realize because I haven't lost anyone like that. So, every time I try to relate, it really, even trying to relate, I mean, it's so painful. I couldn't imagine how painful it is to the actual family members. And when you're grieving, when you're even trying to digest, losing a family member, period, is difficult enough. But to lose a family member to homicide, it's just a different level of grief, I would think.
Right.
And so we understand it's, the last person you probably want to speak to is a reporter. But I guess my advice, suggestion is, if you don't want to speak with them right away, do not speak with them and just say, you can for sure slam the door if you like, or say, we'll get back to you. We'll have a family member get back to you. Please don't call until we're ready and we'll call you. Don't call us, kind of thing. But when you're ready, and the media, they like to, obviously, when the incident happens, they like to report it right away, right? Yesterday's news is old news, as they say, right? When it's happening now, that's when they want that information, right? So that's why they'll come to the family member. That's why they'll approach me, the police, and they'll want comments right away. You don't have to give them right away. No, this is your time. So you take as much time as you need. But when you're comfortable, and if you become comfortable, reach out to the media because they do help. Going back to what I said about amplifying our message and really helping to tailor that narrative, which is important because I guess if family members don't speak on behalf of their family members, I guess somebody else will take over that narrative. Somebody else could potentially hijack that narrative. And if you don't speak to the media, I suppose they'll find somebody who's in a poor position to really speak about your loved one. An acquaintance, they'll find somebody through social media, maybe a friend of a friend through Facebook, and they'll reach out to that person and they'll say, well, tell me about Johnny, tell me about, Jill. And, they'll speak about, the little that they know of
Mhm.
your family member, your loved one, and that will be the story that gets played. And we don't want that, right? We
Right.
want parents, we want siblings, we want people who actually were important in their lives to speak on their behalf. So, and if you need help in that, certainly that's why I'm here,
Okay.
because I understand how difficult it is.
And what I'm hearing then is that some of the benefits of speaking with the media is that you can control the narrative and shape how the public perceives your loved
Absolutely.
one. And as you mentioned, the risk is if you don't, the media may find somebody else that may show a different version of your family member or person.
Mhm.
Um, how long does the media last? Like, how long would a family have to be prepared to deal with this?
Yeah. I think if in my experience, it really varies. I think all homicides make for big news because I think everybody understands, everybody, in the community understands when somebody's life is taken, that's serious. Um, you'll oftentimes it's really top three news on any given news hour. But some investigations and I'm careful to say this because like every homicide investigation is important. Every life is important, whether it's man, woman, child. Every investigation deserves uh, the attention. And but some investigations that come to mind that the media has paid, I think, more attention than perhaps others is, for example, I would say one is the homicide of 13-year-old Marissa Shen, for example. As a
Mhm.
young girl who was killed randomly in Burnaby Central Park. That certainly garnered significant media
Right.
attention, given, I think, Marissa's age
Mhm.
and the fact that it was random and that really it, I guess, struck every person in the community.
Right.
Every parent paid attention. Every person that walked that park from that day on paid attention. But really, yeah, every homicide victim has a story and a story that has to be told. And the worst and the thing that I hate more than anything else is when people say, well, that particular victim was known to police.
Mhm.
And it's a term, and I'm guilty of it because I use it so often, more often than I like. But this person was known to police, or he was involved in the drug trade or involved in gangs. And I know that when we say those things, the vast majority of people out there, they'll dismiss it and they'll move on, and they'll say, "Well, it was targeted." Dare I say, that person deserved it. I hate saying that, and I
Mhm.
apologize for saying that. But there are insensitive people out there that actually say those things, right? And
Mhm.
that it really makes us mad.
Yeah.
But going back to your question, Jessica, yeah, there's, every homicide in the beginning, I think, in my experience, it gets significant attention and then the attention kind of wanes. And um, but some investigations definitely get more attention than others.
Right. Sure. Like you mentioned, either because of the age of the person or if it's random, then the community may feel threatened, which creates a lot of interest
Yeah.
that pushes the
Yeah.
media. Yeah. Um, one thing I remembered in speaking with a few people in our homicide grief groups is back to the controlling the narrative is what about finding somebody who can speak to the media on behalf of the family? Does that happen? Would you recommend that?
Yeah. Although I would just say this: there's nothing more powerful than having the family member
Hmm.
speak. And the media certainly, I think, appreciates having uh, somebody who's really close to um, the person, right? So whether it's the parents, mom or dad, or brother and sister, a spouse, girlfriend, boyfriend, somebody who is really close to that person who can really, you know, um, I guess, speak from the heart, right? You know, if a family member doesn't feel comfortable, we all understand that. And in no way do we pressure the family member to participate with the media. IHIT, we certainly don't do that. But you know, when you, I guess, ask somebody else, I mean, I guess the question is, who is that somebody? If that somebody is a cousin or somebody who was close to your loved one, then yeah, it makes sense, and you know, that would be appropriate. But if it's somebody who, you know, didn't have anything, you know, didn't have any interactions with that person, then really, can they speak from the heart, right?
Right.
Or would they just simply be reading a piece of paper? And you know, we all understand we don't. That's not what we want. We want somebody who can say, "Look, everyone, right? This was my brother. This was my sister. This was my child." Right? I don't care what judgments you make of me or my child or my family, but look, we're speaking today to those of you who can help us. This is who he was, who she was. We need your help, right? This person, my son, wasn't just a statistic, right? Isn't just, you know, 1 out of 50 homicide victims we had last year. No, this person, my son, you know, was an athlete, was a good student, and we just need to know what happened to him. And really, it's about connecting with people, right?
Right.
The media really is just the camera that's there to facilitate your message, right? And they're good at it because they'll, you know, they have so many means of getting your message across, right, to such a wide audience. And when you have somebody who is, you know, who is so close to the victim, to the I'm sorry, I keep saying victim, but you know, the loved one. And you're able to look at the camera and connect and tell and speak from the heart about your loved one. It's everybody. It resonates with everybody, right? And believe it or not, there are people who actually have a change of heart, who actually listen and go, yeah, I haven't forgotten about that. I have information, and maybe now's the time to come forward, right?
Okay.
We do get those cases. We don't make appeals just because we like the sound of our voice. We actually do that because in our experience, we do get that call. We have that flicker, you know, that blinking light when we come in the morning. And man, I love those moments. There's been quite a few of those days where I come in, there's that light blinking. I play it and go, oh, you got, you know, 3 new messages. And I'm thinking, oh, it must be, you know, police officers, or it must be, you know, the usual people that always call me. And then it happens to be, you know, hi, is this IHIT? You know, and then the compelling message follows. Those are good days. And believe it or not, there's quite a few of those days.
Okay. That's great for people to hear that you guys are working on it all the time until the case is brought to the Crown Council, right, by the police. Okay. Tell me about the family brochure. There's an IHIT family brochure, correct?
Yes. So it's our family guide that was developed in partnership with E Division, or the BCRCMP Major Crime Unit. And really, it's based on our experience. One of the things that we do, one of the difficult things that we do as investigators is once we know the next of kin information based on the identity of our homicide victim, we have to notify the next of kin. That is priority number 1, because the last thing we want is for them to find out through the media, right? So that's one of our really the first priority at the beginning of the investigation. And in the past, you know, we've gone and you know, we've brought along our victims services workers to provide support and to answer questions once the investigators leaves, because you have to understand, investigators, especially in the beginning, we got to get going. We got to solve this thing. But you know, and I myself have had to knock on doors in the middle of the night and pass on the bad news.
Mhm.
And I've stumbled through it. Sometimes especially in the beginning, I didn't know what to say. All I could say was, I'm sorry. Silence, because I really don't know what to say. And all I can do is just sit there in silence and just be there, I guess, be
Mhm.
present
Mhm.
and just shut up and answer questions,
Bear
whatever
witness.
questions that come my way.
Yep.
But we've learned, I think, as investigators at IHIT that, we need something in print, right? Because especially in the beginning, you've just received devastating news. You can't digest anything. Anything that I say, it's just in one ear, out the other, right?
Mhm.
And so we've come up with this guide, this family guide, and really it provides a lot of good information. It's I know we inundate families with all these resources and pamphlets and booklets and things like that, but this booklet really is quite useful. We've gotten some good positive feedback, and for families who are involved with us, about this guide. But we make it available to everybody who would like to see it. There's phone numbers. There's the things that I talked about, just best practices with dealing with the media
Mhm.
and with investigators. Things like why is it taking so long? What what are the investigators doing? Why can't they share that bit of information? Things like holdback evidence that you probably heard of. Number of times investigators speak of how they can't share some information because it is holdback evidence. All of that is addressed in this guide. So we can make that available either electronically or in a hard copy. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, and we'll connect a link on this video at the end of it to make sure people know where it's at. So that's great.
And sorry, Jessica. Yeah, and it comes in languages other than English, of course. It comes in French and Korean, Japanese, Chinese, Punjabi, Spanish, and some other languages as well. So if
Mhm.
English isn't your first language, definitely there's resources for you in your native tongue. Yeah.
Great,
I just
great. Yeah,
wanted
I've got noted here. You have it in 6 different languages.
Yeah.
So that's great. All right. Anything else you'd like to add in regards to IHIT and your media role before we conclude here?
Um, uh, I guess I'd like to add this. And sorry, I should have probably started off with this, but because it's a lot of the audience for this forum will be family members,
Mhm.
um, others as well, but certainly family members. I just want to say, um, we say a lot here at IHIT, but our condolences go out to the families. Our thoughts and prayers are with you, and I don't want that just to be a statement that we use over and over again, but we certainly do mean that. I certainly do mean that. And um, in my time here at IHIT, whether it's on the investigative teams or in the media relations role, there's been a lot of successes. We've had quite a number of cases, at least in my time, where it's gone to charge approval. And we understand that charge approval doesn't bring your loved one back, but hopefully it provided some answers for you. But really, for me, it's not the success, quote unquote success stories that come to mind. It's really the cases that have yet to be solved that really, I think, sometimes keep me up at night.
Right.
I remember the first crime scene where I was the crime scene manager on my first IHIT investigation that I was involved in. A young man found inside a vehicle. I'm not going to mention names or
Mm.
anything like that, but in the middle of the night, went to the crime scene. It was a young man inside his vehicle, found inside his vehicle. Remember telling his family and the relationships I still maintain with that family. His sisters had a number of sons since I guess their uncle passed away,
Mhm.
and things like that stick with me, and that's really our motivation. So when anybody says, IHIT doesn't care, IHIT, what are they doing with my loved one's investigation? I know the investigators, they don't like to say it. I don't know if it's like a modesty thing, like they don't want to, say how, wonderful they are, but I'll say it with them because that's kind of what my job is. I'm proud to say that actually these investigators, they work day in and day out, and it's really for the families. We make the same money whether we solve it or not, but our primary motivation is to pick up the phone call, is to go drive to your home, knock on the door, and say, "Hey, look, do you have a minute this afternoon? We got some significant news on your loved one's case." That is what we live for here. So I just wanted to say that. Thanks, Jessica.
Thank you, Frank. Thanks so much for taking the time. We really appreciate it. It's been really informative.